In this section, we're going to be taking a look at how we set up model sheets or templates inside of Maya. So a modeling template is going to give us an image that we can get that a concept artist drew, or you maybe find something off the internet, or maybe you do your own drawings, and you get that in a digital form, and then you push that image over into Maya, and we're going to set it up in a certain way that whenever we build our 3D models inside of Maya, we're going to be able to use that image as a template to work off of. So we get to know exactly where maybe a head or shoulder kind of falls, or the edge of a blade or something like that. Okay, so I've got quite a few different pieces of concept that we've got for this section. I think what'll make the most sense is to make a modeling template and show you that process, getting it in there, and we'll be using the character for this one. Okay, so I'll just tap F and then tap F again real quick while I'm in Photoshop, and you can see on here Ryo Matazi did the 3/4 view, the color beauty pass on this, and then I did the modeling template drawings from that. And so we're trying to give you a view that gives you a front and a side and a back of this character, and trying to make the drawings as three-dimensional as possible as far as making sure everything kind of lines up for all the different drawings. So I'm going to hit tab and we'll bring up our menus here. Something else to note about this file is that we do have some masks in here, so I'm going to click on the mask. You can see it's tied to this layer group that we have here, and hold down Alt and click on that, and then you can see we've got a black and white image. So that's actually going to come in kind of handy when we make these modeling templates. It is possible that we can knock out this entire background and only see just the character within inside of Maya, but that'll come at a later stage. I'm going to hold down Alt and click on this again. The first step is just to make sure we can get some images in there. So I'm going to use the marquee tool to make a selection. I'll tap M, or you can hit this button right here. And we want to go ahead and make a square image. So I'm going to go and hold down Shift and drag this thing out, and it'll constrain this to a square for us, like that. And if we don't, you can drag out a shape like this, and your style should be set to normal here. So again, if I want to drag out a perfect square, just hold down Shift and click and drag that thing out like that. The next thing I'm going to do is do a copy merge. So we'll go to Edit and do copy merged. You can see the hotkeys for this. Really start to pay attention to the different hotkeys in the programs. Anytime you see a hotkey, just make sure you're paying attention to that and try to use the hotkeys as much as possible. It's definitely going to speed up your workflow. So we'll do a Shift Control C, or hit this copy merged, and then now I'm going to tap F again. That puts us in these different drawing modes for Photoshop to cycle through like this, and so you can keep hitting F like that. We've copied that and we've put it into the clipboard. So now we're going to make a new document. We're going to go to File, New, and then we're just going to move this on over. So you can see this is the exact dimensions of that image that it gave me that I copied from, and we'll go ahead and hit OK, and we'll just hit Control V for paste, just like any other program out there. Now to flatten this thing down, you can see there's a layer here, and we need to flatten that down. We can hit Control E, and that'll merge that layer down. Or you can see if you go within here, there's some different merging options right in here for that. Okay, so this is going to be our front view. So I'm going to save this out, and I'm going to call this modeling template for the front. Let's see, we'll make a new folder and just call this model templates, like this. And then I'm going to save this as a target file. Photoshop not Photoshop, Maya likes target files, so I'll just go ahead and save that as a target file, and I will call this pirate front empty, just for modeling template, just to make things easy to know what that is later. I'll hit save for this, and we got a target option for 24 bits or 32 bits. When we look at the saving out an alpha version, we'll need 32 bits, but right now we'll just save it as 24-bit, like that. And let's hop on over to Maya, And you can see this is the previous scene that we were working with before, and now we're going to add our modeling templates to this scene. Okay, now that we're inside of Maya, we're going to go ahead and go to the front view. So if we just tap on the spacebar, we're going to be able to see this quad view that you see here. And if you don't see it, you can go ahead and click on this here, and it should give you a top, front, side, and perspective view. If you hover your cursor over any one of these windows and tap the spacebar, you can go zoom in and out to that particular window. And again, we're going to go to the front view like this. And then we're going to add an image plane. So we're going to go to View and go to Image Plane and say Import Image. Now we need to go ahead and navigate to where we saved out that image. So depending on where you saved yours, go ahead and navigate to that area. So I'm just navigating to where I saved off these modeling template images. Go ahead and click on it. I'm going to go ahead and load that and hit Open. And you can see here's our image plane that we have down here at the bottom. Because it's selected, we should be able to take the scale icon and just move this thing and scale it up. So we can click this here, or you can see if we hit Q, this is this, W, E, and R for these different tools. So this is move, rotate, and scale. So we need to get this thing roughly the size that we're looking for this character, and we want the feet to be right along the horizon right here on the grid. And I believe I want this character to be a bit, let's go ahead and scale this up, move it, and I want to scale it up a little bit more. I was thinking this character should be about this big compared to a human. So I'm going to hit the space bar and go out of this and look into the 3/4 view, and we'll just push this back in space like this right here. And that's basically all we need to do to get this front template set up like that. So I'm going to go through the same process and save out a side view and a back view, and then we'll load those in as well. So I'll be right back to Maya, and we'll have you make your model templates as well. Alright, we're back in Photoshop, and I wanted to point out a few things that are going to help you out in this process. So if you use guidelines inside of Photoshop, that's going to help you set where maybe a center line of this thing is. That's one thing I wasn't too careful about whenever I made that original first image, was that this center line needs to be running down the center of our document. So I'll go back to this piece that we had here, and if we want to make these guides and these rulers, you can hit Control R, and that'll bring up your ruler, and you can click and drag out a guide, and it should, in the middle of your document, kind of just, you'll feel it kind of snap to the middle of your document. And you can turn these guides on and off, visibility. You can just hit Control H and that'll hide, and you can hit Control H and it'll bring it back. But you can see I've got this guideline directly in the center of this modeling template here, and I've lined up my character concept. Its center is going right down the center of this. This is going to be important whenever you model, because you want to model one half of this object and have the other half of the object be created for you as you're modeling. So you only have to build half of the model in certain areas. Okay, so there's that front view, and then I did the same thing for the back view and saved those out. So that's just something to note. That's kind of important. The other thing I'm going to show you is how to make an alpha channel for this, so we can knock out the background if we want. And so we're going to make a new version of this front view that's just specific with an alpha channel. So if you remember me telling you in this model sheet, you might have to make this alpha channel yourself, but I have one provided in this area under the this layer group. You can go ahead and hit Alt and click on that, and then we'll go ahead and just make a marquee selection like we did last time. Hold down Shift, and let me put that on this marquee tool right here, and hold down Shift and then drag out this right here like that. And so we can copy that. I do know that I can hit Control T to check if I'm off a little bit on this. Control T is actually going to let you transform, so it lets you kind of scale things and move things around. If I hit the arrow key, the right arrow key, That's actually going to move that thing across. I'm going to hit escape to get out of there. I just know that I'm not on center right now. So I'm going to go over to channels. I'm going to copy that. Let's just keep that in mind that we're not centered up right now. So we'll copy that, Control C out of this masking channel that we're over here. And channels are just a black and white mask or a black and white image that tells you something about value, right? So the white is visible and the black is being knocked out. So hop on over here to this other document, and I'll make, under layers, we got channels. Let's go make a new channel, and I'll just paste, Control V, so I'll paste that in there. And it's possible to see how this mask is lining up with everything else if we just turn on the visibility of everything else, and you can see we're off here. So I can have this alpha channel selected and just put on the move tool or tap V, and then now I can use my arrow keys and nudge that thing to the left, and it should be pretty easy to kind of line that thing up visually like that. I'll hit Control D, and that'll deselect the selection that you saw there. So here's my alpha channel, and that seems to be working okay, and we've got RGB, and we'll go to layers. So that's exactly what we need. So let's go ahead and save this thing out. So I'll say File, Save As. We're going to save it as a target file again, and this time I'm going to call this Pirate Front Modeling Template, but I'll put a underscore A right in here for alpha on this one, and we're telling it to include the alpha channel. We'll hit Save. This time we're going to save as 32 bits because we need that extra bit of information that is stored in the channels area. Go ahead and hit OK, like that. And then now let's hop on over to Maya again. I wanted to show you in the outliner. If we go to the outliner, Windows outliner, you can see image planes are now directly within this area, so you can select it and get back to it pretty easily. And you can rename this thing. So this is the front image plane, so you can call this front underscore image plane if you want, like that. Might help you to keep things a little bit more organized. And if you hit Control A, that's going to bring up your attribute editor for and the attribute editor is whatever you have selected. It's all the different kind of options and things like that that you can use. Yours might actually be docked over here into the interface. I'm not a fan of that. All you gotta do is click and drag that out, and then you don't have to worry about that popping up all the time. I really like mine to be separated out. Here's the image that we loaded up. So if we wanted to swap this out with a new updated image, such as the one that we have with our alpha channel, we can click this and just go ahead and navigate to where that thing actually sits. So here's my front with the alpha channel, and go ahead and hit open, and you can see here's the advantage of us having the alpha channel. You can see now we can just see this character, and it's knocking out everything from the background, so it's nice and clean looking for us. Okay, so let's pull in the side view that we've got over here. So we're going to go to View, Image Plane, Import Image, and we'll go through that same process and do a side like this, and we'll load that thing up. Now I want to take note of what is the scale of this. Let's just make life easier for ourselves, so we'll do 12.63. Just make it a whole number like that, well, as close as we can. So I'll just go ahead and copy that value, and then we'll go down to this image plane here, and for the scale I'm just going to select this one, hold down Shift, and I'll select all these, and I can hit Control V and paste that value in multiple channels all at the same time. The other thing is we want to get the location of this thing, so we're translating up in Y, so you can see we've got this translate Y value. We'll go ahead and copy that, and then we'll paste that into here, and now we're hooked up in this area. And then now I can just push this image plane until I start to form something that looks kind of like a box a little bit, somewhat. This one might have to be pushed back just ever so slightly, but none of this is like a big deal for where this stuff sits. It's just, this is just to give you something to model off of from these different views. So now we've got a front view and a side view, and if we want to load a back view, we're going to have to do something. We're going to have to create a new camera for ourselves. So we've got a front camera, and Maya doesn't have a back camera by default. Let's just check this and make sure. We'll go to the top view because we're going to use that one. We'll go to panels, orthographic, and we could do new. There is a back, so let's just go ahead and do that. Okay, so that's something new since I've used some of these modeling template things in a while. So now we've got this back view, and I'll go ahead and middle mouse drag this up here just for organizational purposes and put this right under the front here. And I'm going to select this back camera, and we're going to go to view and then do image plane, import image, and we'll do back like this. Okay, and again we've got to set up the scale of this thing. So go ahead and select it, we'll move it forward, start scaling it up, tap R, scale this thing like this. I'm going to have to copy those values just to make sure everything comes over okay. So again, we'll select it, select this top one, hold down shift, and then click down here, and that'll capture all those areas. Hit Control V. That'll paste that in there. I know on X I want that right in the center, so I can just put that at 0. And then pushing this direction, we'll just line this up here, roughly there. And we need the translate Y value from the original one that we set up, and we'll click on this one and paste it in there. And now we're starting to get a template that we can see. So here's something else to note. These different image planes. So we got a front image plane. This is our side, and I like to name everything, and I think it's a good practice for you to do that as well, just to keep everything organized and make sure you're doing things correctly. And then we'll call this one back image plane like that. Okay, and you can even group things together, so you can select all these and hit Control G, and you can group these together and just call them image planes. My M key is not working in my for some reason. Well, anyways, so hit enter for that, like that, and we can keep that organized. We could group our cameras together like this, and I'm not going to have a M for whatever reason. And this is our geo, so I'll select all that and hit Control G and call this geo like this. So how you organize this stuff is up to you, but it just helps to keep yourself organized for things. And you can take any of these groups and middle mouse drag it in the outliner. Be careful not to middle mouse drag it over the top of a group, because now I just basically nested that image plane thing within there. I can drag it out again like that to get it out here, but I really want it to sit right there. So I'll just take a little bit of getting used to for that. So there is this possibility, if we go to the front image plane, we bring up those attributes for it. So hit Control A to bring up the attribute editor. And if you're wondering where that actually sits, it's under Window, Attribute Editor. But just get used to using that hotkey. So we can tell it to have this image plane shown in all views, or we can tell it to look through a particular camera. So we only want it to view it through the front camera. This one we only want to look through the back, and then this one looking through the side like this. So what that allows us to do is, you saw it was getting a little bit messy from that one view. One image plane was sitting over the front of the other one kind of thing or whatever, and that was causing some issues. You can see here's the actual they're called the different parts of the camera. I'm not sure exactly what they're calling this inside of Maya, but you can see if I see this stuff, if I push it through the character, it actually slices through the character. So this is like what the camera can actually see. So you definitely want to have that stuff back away from your character far enough like this, so we don't have to worry about this cutting into our model at all. And if you don't want to see that stuff in the perspective view, you can go to Show, and I believe if we take cameras, we'll be able to turn that off like that. Okay, so again, if you want to see this one of those image planes, like in the 3/4 view, we'll hit Control A and bring that back, and we could say, what do you want to see that through? So you might do perspective. Actually, I'm on the wrong thing here, so we'll do back one. I want to use the front image plane, and we'll do perspective, so you can make sure you're always looking at it like that. But if you need to get back to it, you know, and put it back in that front view, you can always come here and go front like that. Or we can use this. It's going to be visible in all views, but that's going to cause an issue with this front and back camera overlapping over the top of each other. So let's leave it there like that. So that's basically how you can set up your scene. I like to also at the very end, before you close out, like you know, saving some people some work whenever you're working on a team. If you just select this, your main model in here, and tap F in all your views, it'll frame that object, and then you can click and put your view, hit the spacebar over your perspective view, and then you want to save this out. So I'll say File, Save Scene As, and we'll go ahead and go to the current project, and I'll call this character, we'll call it Pirate, model template setup. And again, my M key is not working in certain situations. I don't know. So I'll hit Save As, and we're good to go. Now we're at the point where we can start modeling this. So again, depending on what you're building, this process is going to be exactly the same no matter if you're making the character, or if you're making weapons or props or anything else like that. You're going to have to go through this process, and you're going to be able to now have a scale reference inside of Maya that has, you know, the UE4 roughly a little bit larger than 6-foot character, then your character with the scale reference in there, and then now whenever you put it in your modeling templates for the other objects, you'll have some kind of reference to know, like, how big should a shield be, how big should a sword be, or something like that, right? So just pay attention to the scale, always be looking at that. Just make life easy for yourself when you make these modeling templates, and keep them in a square kind of ratio like this, because it is possible that you can pull in images that are not square ratio, but it just makes your life that much more difficult to line everything up and get everything kind of situated. So that's a rundown of the modeling templates. So go ahead and make sure you're using that, because you want to definitely make sure any models that you create are conforming to the concepts that were given to you, or the reference that you have found for that particular object.